Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Diana. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. We're so grateful to have you out here, Diana. Diana Wu David, CEO and board-level consultant, author, and TEDx speaker, is here with us today to talk about a very important thing. In this really, really small world we're living in, business is going faster than ever. And she's going to talk about how companies can be nimble in a moment of geopolitical crisis or chaos, which has happened for some companies. You have to move and groove and go quickly. So welcome, Diana.
Thank you so much, Christina. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell me, what brought you to being a consultant and helping businesses stay nimble in this crazy new universe where things are moving and grooving so quickly?
Well, I, for decades, have been somebody who, inside of corporations, inside of my own startups, and as a consultant, have dealt with digital disruption. And really, since the 90s, helping big corporations initially figure out what they wanted beyond, gee, I need a website. And then my career has grown across the world, really, starting in the US, but then in Europe, and I now live in Asia. And so that has fed into staying nimble in the geopolitical scene and just with the advance of globalization as well.
Yeah, it is interesting, Diana, because I heard someone mentioning, he's a business owner and a mentor, and he said, people come to me and they say, oh, my business was rocking and rolling. I've been doing well all these years. Now what happened? And he said, but that was 5 years ago. That's not today. You have to keep moving and grooving. You have to change your strategy as things move. What have you seen as some of the pitfalls businesses are making with not staying on top of technology?
Well, I think that in terms of technology, and my book, Future Proof, which really is about staying nimble with all that is going on, is about the changes in technology and globalization and demographics. And I think that there's that sort of triple whammy, triple threat that people are facing, and all kinds of businesses often focus on one. In fact, they often focus on the tech, and then they get caught out because there's a lot of other stuff going on. And, really it's hard, as it has been since the dawn of entrepreneurship, I suppose, to take that step back to work sort of on your business instead of in your business, especially when so much volatility is happening and you just feel like you're in reactive mode. It's so difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I'm thinking, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I've got the perfect website and they've got these processes going and whatever. But one thing I found, because I've consulted with businesses here in New York, is the loss of connection with their customer. That so much technology is awesome and it's made life easier, but then there's that, you can't lose that connection with your clients. Yeah,
I think that for me, and probably it's just how my brain works, it's about strategy. So it's about what you're actually trying to do. It's sort of and when we were talking about the geopolitical kind of volatility right now, I've seen so many people who are basically freaking out. And I live in Hong Kong, so I guess that's a moment in time where it's more warranted than ever. But the reality is that it's back to values. It's back to why you're doing your business, what your deepest values are, and what you're trying to do now and in the future, and going back to that kind of calm sense of, okay, I know that it's chaotic now. I know that everything is changing. I know that, frankly, as a small business person, it's exhausting. As any person, it's exhausting. But let's remember, why I'm here and what I'm trying to do, and then maybe prototype some options that I can do. And it's not just your customers, it's your employees too. I write a lot about distributed workforce, but sometimes that personal connection, that sort of being human at work, is the thing that does get lost in the shuffle when we think about, I got to do this, and then maybe I need this technology solution, and then you have to go back and say, why? Why do I want that? How's that going to benefit my people?
Yeah. I like that you mentioned the employees. So many of our past guests have come on and mentioned the important thing, the thing that puts the food on the table, which is the orders coming in from our clients. But who makes those orders happen but our internal employees? That can't be lost. And I like that you mentioned to have that human connection. One of my absolute favorite jobs way back when was working in a company where we had a coffee cart that would come twice a day, 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. And we'd all get together on the floor, go have coffee and some coffee cake or whatever and talk. But it was that connection with each other and with the company that really allowed us to enjoy being there. There's that thing that is very important to keep. So what else do you find is a real... Like, say they get started today, a company's like, I know things aren't working. We're not making the profit. Things have changed geopolitically and around the world business-wise. Where do they begin to see where their issues are so they can begin to work on them?
So generally, I take people back to where they are. And back to the basics. Why did you start this business? What are you trying to do? What job is this doing for your customers? And then project out where they, oftentimes if they're stuck, it's because they're doing the same thing. Like you were saying, my business is great at 5 years ago. And sometimes it's just subtle shifts that you need to make in your business, but understanding where you're going. And then figuring out what some of those gaps are and what some of those shifts are, even proactively. Oftentimes you realize the gaps need to be filled right away. And it is people and maybe, some of the people in your business. Sometimes it's just the way you relate to your clients, where you're still approaching them in the same way, but all your competitors have moved on. They're not just doing the same exact sales process. They're providing a lot more value. So I think that I have a bent towards the future. It's sort of my thing. So I kind of look out at the next couple of years of my business and say, okay, what is it that I said I wanted to do and the job I'm doing for my customer? What is it that I think that'll look like in 3 years? And what are the gaps between sort of what it will be and what resources I have or processes I have to make that happen. Even my own internal resources. I mean, I think that, one of the things that we don't talk about, so we've talked about our clients, we've talked about our employees, but what about ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when things are volatile, like that is the time when you need to also remember that you are the best resource for your business. And if you're not investing in, yourself and your own kind of ability to manage on a health level, on a mental level, then it's very difficult for you to be a wise leader for your clients and the other people around.
I love that you mentioned that, Diana. What happened for me at the beginning of the year, my husband, we got married last year. He needed surgery this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. He did well, but I was going through hectic stress, with thinking about the surgery, the trips out there for the surgery, doing my business, my consulting, the show. And, one day I just say, you know what? I got to take a step back, a breather, see not only what I need first so that I can better provide. And you're right, that internal check with yourself. Are you able to best provide for your clients right now, right here? Where are you? That self-check.
Yeah, I think that we often forget that. And actually, that is one of the things that people tell me they have taken away from future-proofing. I started really with a focus on individuals, and some of them are entrepreneurs and some of them are corporate, etc. And it's sort of an individual take on, oh my gosh, things are so volatile. What do I do? And I started looking at it, and I realized, as somebody who has a small business myself, that there are professional, business things you can do, but one of the biggest problems is that balance of what are the resources I have at my disposal, who are the people that I can call. If you're at the head of a business, it's like you want to be that wise leader for your staff, so you need to find your other people that you can celebrate with, that you can talk to for support when you're having a difficult problem or a bad day. And there's a more holistic investment, I guess, in yourself as a business leader.
Yeah, yeah. And I found for myself, it was interesting when I took that step back, I actually asked our audience, what are they looking for from Savvy? And we sent out a survey, and our audience came back with, can you make the show shorter? Because we don't have that much. I'm like, wow, yes, I can. You save me some time. So, and that's the thing when people think my business worked 5 years ago, it's not working today. Well, maybe that short little shift you need to make will actually make your life easier as well as your customer. It'll work for them better and work for your workflow process as well. Yeah,
it is a dance, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It may not work, maybe later they'll say, I really would love more, holograms from you, Christina. You never know.
I got to figure that out.
Keep asking.
But you mentioned something else, Diana, that was very interesting, and you can't do it all, and to look for those resources. And I think something that's been hard for a lot of business owners, including myself, is letting go of certain things and going, they can handle it. Whoever you've hired, whatever vendors you have or employees, going, entrusting them and trusting they can do it. One thing I found, even working as a consultant, you'll go into places and there'll be managers who will run themselves ragged. And I'm like, you've got people here. Use them. They want to feel not used. They want to feel like I can use my services and benefit the company. Trust in them. So I think that's something I've seen. What's your take?
I think that trust is something that we seem to be having a bit of an issue with globally.
Yeah.
People don't trust their governments. They don't trust their, business leaders. They don't trust the media, fake news, all these things. So I think that the people that I work with, and I work at board level quite a bit as well, we talk a lot about that. And the thing that's interesting, it's like one of my favorite things to talk about. Don't get me on a tangent. But the interesting thing is how differently people view trust, how much intentionality there needs to be. We like to think of trust as being something that just appears, but really understanding what it means to people and trying to help them bridge that divide between you and somebody else, I think is really important, especially now as things like diversity and inclusion become more important. We've sort of said it's something we should do, and there's a lot of statistics saying it's better for your business, but we don't really know how to create trust with people who don't have the exact same values and experience and culture as we do. So there are really some great things that you can do for yourself to understand yourself better. So maybe you can be that manager who trusts your staff, and also to understand them, so that it's sort of like the asking, educating yourself and asking your clients, what would work for you? And it may not be what you think.
Wow. This is something I never thought about, Diane. I never even thought there'd be different definitions of trust for different cultures or different people. And it never even occurred to me. So you're saying the best way for a manager or maybe owner to get started is understanding each of their employees or vendors is, what is it that you need? What do you need from me to make your job easier?
Yeah, and I think that you can use the T word. What would create a culture of trust in our company?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that allows people, if they feel safe, if there's like a word called psychological safety, which seems kind of clinical to me, but people in innovation realms use it often. And it's basically, I feel comfortable, with constructively challenging your ideas and offering my own opinions. And I think as a business leader, I want my staff and my team to feel like they can do that, because that is really the only way that you get a sense of, what's going on in the business, what are the options, not just the ones I have to think up myself, but, the collective wisdom of everybody who's working on your business, and maybe advisors who aren't part of your team, kind of creating a network for yourself of people who do things in maybe different businesses, and the time and space to really, have those people, meet with those people, have them on speed dial so you can work through issues. I think that horizontal network is really something that, that entrepreneurs need for their sort of mental health, but also just to get a different perspective. It really is about gathering a lot more wisdom than just you yourself can have sitting behind your desk.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone around you will have a different take. I mean, you'll look at the situation, think there couldn't, like I just thought, there couldn't be another way to look at the word trust, but there is, because people come from different perspectives. And it's interesting you say that, Dana, because at many companies I go to, and I talk to the management staff, and they're like, oh, yes, we're very transparent here. We value transparency. We let all of our employees stay their mind, and we take their, but when you really talk to the employees, they're like, no, we can't speak. No, I get fired if I say anything. They don't trust that they can really say their piece and not lose their job. So yeah, you're right. This is really, really important that businesses listen to that and realize that really, do you really value what others say on your, within your team or your company, or are you kind of stifling it?
Yeah, I think I work a lot with people who are now grappling with the demographic issue, which is from Gen Z to baby boomers, as people work longer and sort of live 100-year life. And the definitions of what trust looks like and the assumptions are different. And I work a lot with different people from different cultures. Transparency is one of the sort of I think the 13 measures of trust that we use, and it's a very Western, I think it's amazing. I'm totally bought into the, Ray Dalio, full transparency, radical transparency movement. Mm-hmm. But it is something that, for instance, in most Asian cultures, they're like, why would you do that? And it has to do with, transparency, directness of communication, how expressive you are. All these things that we take for granted may not land well. And even if you say transparency, one of my clients, the high-level management was exactly as you say, it's all about transparency. And the lower-level folks were like, yeah, it's all well and good for you to say, you're actually the boss. And for them, it was a lot more about trust is loyalty. I know I'm not going to get fired, or safety, or some of the other elements that can, honesty and transparency and honesty aren't necessarily the same thing. So it is quite interesting to see how people can work at that. And I think it's worth delving into because my vision of the future really is one where we work in different companies with different people, and it is kind of ever changing. So there are some things that we didn't know we had to be good at. And certainly that interpersonal dynamic aspect is one of them.
Yeah, you mentioned something there very important, Diana, and that is that as things change, you might have been an awesome employee, but as the company changes, maybe your skill set doesn't match. So the company will want to look at either rehiring people that can do that section and putting you in a place that would match your skill set, or giving you training so that you can, be a better asset to the company and, also learn more yourself.
The reality is, I think, your audience is in a really good place, because oftentimes the people that I speak to have bought into the idea that I'll go to school and then I'll go get a job, and it'll be quite linear. But for most corporations, you can just look at the S&P 500. There are very few that have been there over, say, 60 years. I think it's in the teens in terms of percentages, and the average age of a corporation is predicted in a few years to be 12 years. So the reality is you will outlast maybe even your company, even if it's a huge company, right? So there is not the safety of being able to do the same thing all the time. It really requires a mental agility that for somebody as old as me has been hard to come by, but I'm working on it.
No, but I get you. I've heard a lot of my millennial, when I've gone to companies that have a lot of millennials, they'll say, well, I go from job every 1 to 2 years because that's how I get a pay increase. And that's how I build my skill set. I learn stuff here and then I go to the next place. And they're like totally cool with that. But the baby boomers were like, no, I stay here till I die. And so, yeah, it is definitely a different mindset. But there's nothing wrong with either mindset. It's just a different way of looking at it.
And yet, Christina, this is the year that the oldest millennials will now fall under age discrimination laws because they're hitting 40. So they're not the young folks that you consider them to be when you say that word.
Well, we're all growing. We're all growing. Well, Diana, it's been awesome chatting with you today. I don't want us to leave without everyone finding out how they can get a copy of your book, find out more about you. How can they do that?
I think the easiest way is to get a copy on Amazon. The book is Future Proof: Reinventing Work in the Age of Acceleration. And I can send you to my website for a resource on an assessment. It's 11 questions to prepare for your future. And it really does help you see where those gaps are. I'm not a big on really long downloads. I have not a lot of time, just like your entire audience. So if you go to dianawoodavid.com, and I can send you the link for the show notes, then they can download that and really get a quick snapshot of what they can do to prepare for the future, where the gaps are, and very quick actionable tips to focus.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Diana Wu David, for coming to Savvy Broadcasting Life Unscripted, for sharing your great wisdom today. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Lovely to speak to you.
If you like this episode, please share. To hear more Savvy episodes and Savvy Biz tips, go to lifeunscriptedradio.com. To become a guest or participate in paid sponsorship, email us at christina@lifeunscriptedradio.com.